What is the ceiling of the Chicago Bulls team? Like, how far can this team go this upcoming season? Let's talk about that, people. What is going on, y'all? Faiz Sports all back at it with another video talking. Of course, I'm going to be here to talk about the Chicago Bulls. So if you're a Bulls fan, please, I implore you, hit that big subscribe button down below. You will not regret it. Make sure to follow me on my social media platforms, guys. As always, hit the bell icon so you're, in fact, notified every time I drop a new video, which I do so very often. All right, so here we go, people. After free agency has been pretty much over now, after the draft has been over, we can now assess the moves. And I've done that, but we can assess the moves, meaning what the ceiling can be for the Bulls with these moves, and take a look at their potential. Now, we've had this conversation before. It's an uncomfortable conversation because we know that the answer is not the answer we want to hear, which is the Bulls are not a championship contender. Right? Let's just put that out there. Let's just address the elephant in the room. We know the Bulls are not championship contenders. We knew that before this offseason. And we knew long-term wise, at least smart Bulls fans understood that the best course of action probably is to do a full rebuild. Yeah, you could have done a retool maybe around Zach LaVine. You could have, kind of addressed it that way. But for the most part, the full rebuild was really the way to kind of get out of this purgatory of mediocrity and try to actually have a future where you can be a contender. Right? That's what we know. But the Bulls front office, the management, they felt otherwise, and they said, you know what, we're preaching continuity. We're still going ahead with this group, and we're running it back. And that's exactly what they did. They re-signed Nikola Vucevic. They went ahead and re-signed Kobe White. And then they added additions in free agency, Javon Carter and Torrey Craig, two veteran players. So with that being said, now that we know the team, and I don't necessarily agree with the direction of the team, but now that we know the team, how far can they go? Well, taking a look at just the Eastern Conference for now, right? Not even the NBA overall. Eastern Conference standings, we know that as currently constructed, they're not better than the Bucks. They're not better than the Celtics. All right? That's a given. Those are the two top tier teams in the Eastern Conference. After that, you have the Sixers, who the Bulls are probably not better than them either, but the Sixers have a little bit of a sticky situation here with James Harden, who opted into his contract, but he requested a trade. So what happens there? Are they going to make a move for Damian Lillard and trade Tyrese Maxey? What is going to happen? But for the most part, just for the purposes of this conversation, we can safely say that they're better than the Bulls, because they'll make a move to make themselves still be better, right? Either if it's acquiring another star, trading Harden for something. I don't see a rebuild on their horizon, or them just going into next season with like nothing around Joel Embiid. So the Sixers are most likely better. And then you have the Cavs next, and the Cavs finished with a better seed than the Bulls did, of course. They finished fourth in the East last year. They're better. So those are four teams you could say are definitively better. And now let's add a fifth team, the Miami Heat, who made it to the NBA Finals. They're going to add Damian Lillard forward. It's a matter of when and not if that trade happens. So that's five teams right there that I can definitively say are going to be better than the Bulls. I know the Sixers seem like a little bit of a question mark, but just work with me here. Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, Cavs, Heat. Not in that order, by the way, just those five teams. So now at best, it seems like you're sixth, right? And who are the teams kind of in this conversation here? Well, last year, the Brooklyn Nets finished sixth, okay? And to me, they didn't really have too many changes to their team. They re-signed Cam Johnson. You got Mikal Bridges. Who knows what happens with Ben Simmons? So that team, to me, for the most part, it's probably getting worse because they're not going to have half a season of KD, Kyrie, etc. You got the Hawks, who lost John Collins, but they pretty much dumped him. And they finished with the 7th seed. Of course, I talked about the Heat at 8. I'm moving them up. The Raptors at 9 got worse. They lost Fred VanVleet. They signed Dennis Schroeder. And so to me, they're a team that got a little bit worse. And then the teams at kind of the bottom of the East last year, the Pacers got better. We know that they re-signed Tyrese Halliburton. They went ahead and drafted some rookies. They went ahead and traded for Obi Toppin. This is a team that got better. The Wizards are in full rebuild mode, so we can put them in the bottom, right? The Magic, still rebuilding. but they have a nice young nucleus, drafted some rookies. And then we got the Hornets and Pistons, who are obviously a work in progress. So there's a handful of teams in the East that you can just go ahead and say, oh yeah, they're not going to be better. That's the Pistons, that's the Hornets, that's most likely the Magic, that's the Wizards, and then I still think the Pacers have a ways to go. So that's 5 teams right there. So now you're still in this middle tier of the East, which includes the Brooklyn Nets, the Atlanta Hawks, the Toronto Raptors, and the Chicago Bulls, right? And we know that the Bulls were a play-in team last year, and that absolutely cannot be the ceiling. So let's go a little higher. The playoffs, right? A top 6 seed, because 7 through 10 are play-in teams. Well, if there's 5 teams definitively better than the Bulls, then their ceiling is most likely going to be a top 6 team, the 6th seed. And as sad as that sounds, as depressing as that sounds, it seems to be the most realistic case. Is there a world where the Bulls finish as a top 4 team and Javon Carter ends up being the perfect weapon for the team at the point guard position, and Torrey Craig really provides some stability in terms of his 3-point shooting and defense, and Patrick Williams takes another leap and actually becomes a very solid NBA player, and Zach becomes a superstar? Like, there are scenarios there, but we're not going to say any of them are dependable. Top 6 is what this team is probably capped at, right? And we remember that this iteration with Lonzo Ball was number 1 in the East for a time being. So I'm going to give AK and Emmy a little bit of slack here, because their plan, when they went ahead and added all those pieces in Lonzo, Vooch, DeMar, their plan actually was working. They were the number 1 team in the East, and then Lonzo goes down and the plan is completely messed up. So I have to give them credit there, because it seemed like it was a good idea and it was working like a good idea. Where I can't give them credit, where I feel like they messed up, is they did not try to address the mistake. They did not realize it and say, hey, look, we went in one direction and it seemed like it was working, but for whatever reason, we ran into bad luck. Now you got to go ahead and address that. And they didn't. They're like, no, we have to make this work. And that's what they've been trying to do. So to me, unless something, that I'm not expecting happens, like one of those situations where, Zach becomes a superstar and Patrick Williams becomes a very good player, like takes a leap next season, or the Bulls defense turns out to be excellent on offense and defense. I really think the Bulls can be an elite defensive team, by the way, with Carter, with P. Will, with Torrey Craig. I think this team can be a very solid defense, and Alex Caruso, of course. So to me, top 6 is the ceiling here. If you're lucky, and if things break right, maybe other teams have some injuries, you can be a top 4 team. But realistically speaking, top 6 is the ceiling. And as far as the playoffs, that's probably, you're playing the 3rd seed. It's probably a 1st round exit. If you get lucky, a 2nd round exit. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys 4 to 6, but most likely 6 is the ceiling in the regular season. And then 1st round is realistic. 2nd round is kind of the best case scenario, a 2nd round exit in the playoffs. That's where we're at, people. Let me know what you guys think, man. Leave a comment down below as always. Thanks for watching.